This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, as always, I'm super excited. It is the highlight of my week. Irregardless of what's going on with the Lions, irregardless of what's going on, getting a chance to break down sports with Adam, the Jock Strozinski, is really important to me. Adam, what's going on? We got a lot to get to in regards to the Lions, the Tigers embarrassing themselves again, bringing on a bunch of people that don't need to be on the Detroit Tigers roster. The Boo Birds are out there. They are not waiting around for their feelings to be known. They just come out and they're telling people, hey, we are not happy with Javier Baez. We are not happy with Al Avila. We are not happy with you, Chris Ilitch. I love it. Passion's out this week, brother. What's happening?
I applaud the fans. I applaud the fans that showed up for Miggy Day. I applaud the fans that downloaded this. I applaud the fans that have been listening to over 463 episodes of me and you just going back and forth in what we used to deem verbal warfare. I feel like we have softened as time has gone on. What is this now, our eighth year, going on our ninth year of doing this? So I applaud everybody who listens and downloads this podcast. Thank you so much. You guys are the true heroes. What took place? You want to just start with the Tigers? Can we just start with the Tigers?
Yes,
I mean, Lions talk,
it.
we could talk all day long. Let's just start with the Tigers real quick.
Absolutely.
So Chris Ilitch and Al Avila show up for Miggy Day. I don't know about you, but I didn't even realize it was Miggy Day. That's how bad of a job this team does with promoting stuff. Apparently celebrating Miggy's 3,000th hit. And the fans gave it to Chris Ilitch and Al Avila. And look, I applaud those people. The people who cheered Al Avila and Chris Ilitch, I boo you. You are the problem with this team. Chris Ilitch, Al Avila need to be held to a higher standard. What we're getting with this team is absolutely abysmal. This is a team that was supposed to take steps forward this year, and it really feels like they're moving backwards. I don't know if you've heard any of A.J. Hinch's most recent interactions with the media where he's being asked these questions. A.J. Hinch sounds like he just doesn't know what's going on. Like he can't put his finger on it. And I'm not saying A.J. Hinch is the problem here, but what I'm saying is this is a manager, a top 5 manager in all of baseball who has the ability to leave at the end of this year. And the job that Chris Ilitch and Al Avila are doing, why would you stay? Why would you stay and have to go through this? This was supposed to be a year of progression, and it really seems like it's a year of regression. And I applaud the fans that booed these guys. They deserve to get booed. Chris Ilitch is absolutely awful at being an owner, and Al Avila is even worse at being a general manager. It is so frustrating being a fan of this team right now. And look, like I said, congratulations to the guys who get it and the gals who get it, who went to Comerica Park on Sunday and booed the shit out of the owner and the general manager.
Okay, so I agree. I think that, Javier Baez, plate discipline's not there, not doing what he needs to do. Obviously, it stinks for a guy like that because he's getting the brunt of the fans. They wanted Carlos Correa. He's viewed as the second option. He's viewed as the guy that basically we paid a lot of money to that isn't going to get the job done. And he's drawn the ire of the fans. Now, is it too soon? Probably is not helping the cause. But unfortunately, in pro sports, that's just the way it is. But I'll look at it like this. I'll look at it a little differently in regards to booing. Chris Ilitch has not done a good job. But I think he's not getting booed because of the fact that he's cheap. I think he's getting booed because the fans are not happy with the decisions that he's made. They wanted him to spend more. He spent more than he ever has, but here's the problem. The problem is he's employed somebody that doesn't have the highest of high standards. He's got a yes man. And a yes man like Al Avila, when you sit down and you just look at his resume, you say, okay, he traded away Justin Verlander. He traded away J.D. Martinez, Nick Castellanos. What have we gotten back? Where are the wins? What on earth what does Al Avila do around here? If you remember The Office and the guys in the basement and everyone looks around and goes, what is it exactly you do here? And you look at it and you ask that question, what is it that Al Avila does that's worthwhile? What does he bring to the table? Is he bringing anything unique? Is he bringing anything extra? There's a lot of general managers out there that can come in and just sign players, draft number one, draft and do this. That's not what anybody in Detroit is looking for. What people are in Detroit are looking for is maybe a general manager that can make a move, can be somebody that steals a player, that maybe is not getting taken advantage of by another team, maybe with Austin Meadows, maybe has more success. Now, a lot of it's luck too, but obviously the biggest problem with Al Avila is that he spent money that he had on players that have not turned it around. Rodriguez, whatever personal matter, hope it works out, is a complete flame out. Austin Meadows is not living up to the expectation. He has not turned it around. The entire offense is bordering on a collapse. And so there's some people who sit back and wait and want to play it all out and look at everything. And there's some people that are aggressive and they just say, this will work, this will not work. And Chris Ilitch is basically, I think, in regards to Al Avila, holding on to somebody that doesn't need to be in his job. And I think that's where the fans are upset. They're looking at it and they're like, we're done with this rebuild. It's done. We don't like it. We're not going. I mean, Miggy Day was great, but yeah, you play. It was announced a month and a half ago. Dude, in the ADHD world, you forget something an hour after it's posted. It's just done. It's gone. On to the next thing. So you look at it from the perspective of the Tigers, it's been such a disappointment because not only is it bad baseball fundamentally, the offense, plate discipline. When Miggy comes out, who barely talks twice a year to the media, and he's like, we got to see more pitches. We got to do something to win games. Losing to the White Sox, I posted it at Detroit Podcast, the most disheartening thing you can do. Their manager is 77 years old and made one of the boneheadedest moves I've ever seen in the history of sports. And you can't go out there and dominate. It's bad. It's bad all the way around, and the fans let them know. I wouldn't have done it then, but I mean, me personally, I don't have to boo. I think the attendance shows that the fans are not happy. They did get out there and support this weekend when the weather was nicer. It was nice for Miguel Cabrera, but the baseball team, everything, when you look at the formula from the hitting coach to the young roster to obviously the devastating news about Casey Mize. The news has not been good, and there's no hope in sight. When you got Cody Clemens, everyone's clamoring for him. He goes 3-4 games without a hit and finally gets a couple hits against the White Sox, who are not the best team. So it's a program and a regime that needs management at the highest level. That's what it takes. It takes extreme insight. It takes extreme, like, hey, you got to be all about the numbers, all about this to get a roster that can compete. It just looks like it's a cheap roster without you can't. Why do the Tigers deserve a 4A roster? I mean, at this point, and this is why I think some of the criticism leveled at Chris Ilitch is acceptable because Chris could do what his dad used to do. I want this guy. Go get this guy. Or I'm going to give you this amount of money to go grab this guy. And it's on you, Al. I'm putting the ball in your court. Now go make it happen. And if you don't make it happen, there'll be repercussions. Chris Ilitch doesn't do that. Chris Ilitch tends to pull back the purse strings a little bit and says, hey, let's see what we can do for this amount of money. What can you get me for this amount? He's over there bargaining. Me and you both know baseball is one of the weirdest sports there is. All right? Generally, high-priced players deserve what they get. They generally earn everything that they get. And for some reason or another, it's just the way the game plays out, it always balances out. You can look at a guy's stat sheet for the last 3-4 years, and you know what you're going to get. Because in the end, water always finds its level. Baseball is one of the only sports that holds super true to what they produce on paper is what they produce in real life. You knew when you signed Javi Baez, you knew what his strikeout percentage was. You knew that he swung at sliders and fastballs and couldn't hit them. You knew this. Everybody knew this. You knew what he could give you defensively, and yeah, that was a lot better than what you had. Baseball is one of the only sports where, as the season goes on, water always finds its level, and if you're a 300 hitter, you're going to be a 300 hitter. If you bash out 20 home runs,
Maybe you'll bash out 25 this year. Maybe you'll bash out 30. But you're generally going to be right around 20, plus or minus 5 or 10. And that's just what it is. If you're an 80 or you're a 160 RB guy, you're going to be an 80 or 160 RBI guy. It's just what it is. It's baseball, man. It is so weird. It is the most statistical sport where it always ends up making sense at the end. Like, you don't know how you got here, but in the end, you did. It's crazy because Miggy will start off the season batting 120. And the guy is swinging at everything. He's missing everything. He's popping up, not getting on base. By the end of the year, the guy's hitting 285. He's got 25 home runs, and he's got 120 RBI. And you're like, how did we get here? For 3 months, the guy couldn't swing a baseball bat. It's just the way it is. It's the law of averages. That's how baseball works out. So you know when you're looking at a guy's stat sheet and you're going to go sign him, you know what you're bringing to the table. You know what it's going to take to get that guy. That's where Chris Ilitch has to put his big boy pants on and say, look, Al, this is what I want. Go get me this guy. I'm willing to spend the money. And at that point, Al Avila's got to realize he's not always the smartest guy in the room and be like, all right, cool. I'll go get you your guy. And you know what? If that happens, guess who it's not on? It's not on Al Avila. It's on Chris Ilitch. That's the beauty of that. It's like walking into a room and being told to grab something that's there, and when you take it back to whoever told you to get it, they're like, "Oh, that's not what I wanted." Well, that's what you told me to get. That's not on you. That's on them. That's how that works. You know, it's to me, baseball is so strange because it is so statistical, and it always ends up basically playing out. The numbers are always true. It's just how it works out. And for Chris Ilitch to not either realize that or not provide Al Avila with the resources or even demand better of him, saying, go get me this guy, I will give you this much money. That's on Chris Ilitch. And that's why the fans have the right to boo. And that's why the fans have the right to be upset with Chris Ilitch. I get it. Al Avila is the problem, but Chris Ilitch bears some of the brunt of the blame here.
Yeah, it's and the fans, man. And it's unfortunate, really, too. I just don't understand what PR staffs that watch what happens from the past don't ever learn from it. It's Miggy Day. It's Victor Martinez Day. He comes out. Let's keep the wave going. Who looks on the rundown sheet and sees introduce Al Avila, introduce Chris Ilitch, and goes, let's just do that because it was great. If you get a chance, if you tape the game and you're lucky enough, just if it was there and you have it, go to the part where Dan Dickerson goes, oh, we got Chris Ilitch, oh, we got Al Avila, and boom, they started booing, and he just, within nanoseconds, he went to the next person, oh, we got Jim Leland here, and it's a big applause. And it's just, you have to read the room. You got to pay attention to what's going on out there. You got to be able to see what the pulse is. In no circumstance, if I read that and my mind goes, Al and Chris are on this, guys, my opinion would be not today, or not until the end of the year when we answer the questions. Hide away. Let's do the Brad Holmes plan. We've done our press conference. Let's hide until the All-Star game and take the heat later because we have already put out an announcement that our top prize pitching free agent is not going to get paid anymore because he's on personal leave. We've already had our number one pick, who arguably you could have taken somebody else who's had a little bit of success. Now Casey Mize is done until 2024. I would have looked at that sheet and I would have said, we are scratching that off the list. That's not happening. And there's no end in sight. There is no end in sight. The news is bad for the Tigers. 12 games under 500. And it's just sad, but you look at it and you say, okay, it's time to tear it all down. And maybe Chris Ilitch will redeem himself and take some action at some point. But, judging by how people perceive it, they just think more of the status quo, and he'll continue to have a yes man and pay a reasonable price for a general manager instead of going out there and breaking the bank for eliteness. Now, I do want to get off of this and jump into something that is really, really interesting in regards to the Red Wings. Now, we're going to definitely talk about what's next, but as I'm prone to do, browsing the Twitter webs, and Vegas has now put out the odds, and the new favorite to land with the Red Wings in terms of the odds, the gambling odds, is none other than number 91, Sergei Fedorov. And that's crazy because Vegas doesn't just throw shit out there. People just don't start throwing money out there. So we're going to talk about, obviously, comparing the Wings to the two teams that are about to embark on what should be a great final. But Sergei Fedorov, I know you've talked about it, maybe not feeling it exactly. Any chance at all you vibe that Sergei Fedorov could come in and turn the tide regarding the Detroit Red Wings and where they're at?
No.
Not at all.
I get with Vegas. I understand, right? Vegas is usually really right when they put their odds out. I don't understand how Sergei Fedorov is the leader in the clubhouse here. I don't know how he's the guy that Steve Yzerman would bring in. I think maybe as an assistant coach, but not as the head guy. And this does kind of fly in the face of what I'm saying, and I get it. Like, John Cooper was a guy who was relatively unknown, was a guy that he kind of took a chance on. Steve Yzerman has come out and said that he wants to get this defense better, right? Like, the defense is part of the issue with this team. What's Sergei Fedorov known for? Sergei Fedorov is known for his offensive prowess. Sergei Fedorov is known for everything great that he could do on the other end of the ice. Sergei Fedorov did play defense, and it took Scotty Bowman basically drilling it in his head to play defense, but he was a fantastic defensive center, but he was much more magical on the offensive side of the ice. I think Steve Yzerman is looking for, especially with this team, where it's at right now, I think he's looking for somebody a little bit more established. I think he's looking for somebody who can really help with the defensive system and really transform that a little bit. I think the way this team is set up right now, defense is obviously the Achilles heel of this team. And whether he needs to address that through the draft or he needs to address that through free agency, I think adding in a coach that has a bit of a defensive mindset or has an idea of what he wants to do on defense, not saying Sergei Fedorov doesn't, will help better this team and make more of an immediate impact. And that's why I don't think Sergei Fedorov should be considered the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah, it's very weird because, yeah, he's had experience a little bit, but in Russia, not really breaking the bank and not really being somebody that's been coveted across the National Hockey League. Detroit would be the only place that he would land. Yeah, I'm not feeling it either. So I'm definitely down for I'm really hoping it's Barry Trotz. I'm hoping that the delay. But now I'll ask you this because, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out here in this world, and there's a lot of people that kind of have their own ideas. And one that came across on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast was a decent one. Any chance at all? It would be risky. It would be ballsy, but I like that. I like that a lot in regards to trying things and doing things. But what do you make of the potential of Steve Yzerman just waiting out the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe giving up a resource and a pick, and just going out there and saying, Cooper, you're my guy. You're the 3-time potential Stanley Cup champion. Come here and do it for the Red Wings. That's the best guy. And why settle for nothing less than the best? In this world, you're Steve Yzerman. You're sitting there in the big chair, and you've just had Jeff Blashill. You've worked with a guy that is okay in the realm of coaching and things like that, but you can jump up in class to the elite status and pick up somebody that's proven that he can do it at the highest level over time. I am not of the opinion that I covet picks so badly that I need to wait 8 years to develop them. If I have to trade one first-round pick and some cash and a player for Cooper to come and man the bench for the Red Wings, I'm doing it. Any credence you give to that conspiracy theory that the reason there's been this long 6 to 7 week delay, despite the fact that there's been proven head coaches out there, is Yzerman's waiting for his boy Cooper to hit up Motown?
I mean, I would love that. I think that'd be great.
You give up picks? May take 2. Might take a lot.
Yeah, it might take.
He's got a contract.
2 first-rounders, one this year, one next year. I mean, you really have to put at that point, right? If Steve Yzerman does that, if he trades for John Cooper, it tells you everything that you need to know about where he feels this farm system is. It'll tell you everything you need to know about where everybody in the minors are. Because if he trades for John Cooper, he's telling you that he feels he's done a good enough job in the short amount of time that he's been here, that the farm system in the next wave is in good order, and this is a guy who's going to help elevate this team and take it to the next level. So I would be okay with it. Again, this kind of falls back into Steve Yzerman we trust, right? Because John Cooper is the guy that Steve Yzerman handpicked, hand-selected, and you've seen what he's been able to do. But I don't see the Detroit Red Wings having a Nikita Kucherov. I don't see the Detroit Red Wings having a Steven Stamkos. I don't see the Detroit Red Wings having an Andrei Vasilevsky on their team. I don't see them having a Braden Point on their team. I don't see them having the guys that Tampa Bay has. If you look like a really good head coach when you have those players make up for a lot of deficiencies that you might have. And I don't see the Detroit Red Wings having anybody on that caliber. It'd be really tough to convince me that Todd Bertuzzi is the equivalent to any of those guys. Dylan Larkin, you know how I feel. I don't feel like he's even on the same page or on anywhere near the same pace as any of those guys. I just don't feel this team, with the way it's currently constructed, you don't have that superstar. You don't have that guy. And I feel like that team on Tampa Bay, they've got a couple of guys who are superstars, and they've got a couple of players who are just stars. You don't even have stars on this team. So I don't know if trading for John Cooper is the right move to make right now at this moment. If Steve Yzerman does do it, though, it tells you everything you need to know about where his game plan is. And we might be a little bit further ahead than we initially thought. But I don't think I would do it just because you don't have those guys yet. You don't have that superstar. You don't have that impact player. I mean, unless you believe Vrana is. If you think Vrana is, then yeah, maybe you've got one. But I would like to see one or two more guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you need a lot. You need a lot to turn this around. But listen, if that's the case, and you get a reasonable, it doesn't go into 3 and cash and players and whatever. If it's reasonable, 1 pick and a player, you got to do it. He's the best. He obviously is on point. I mean, you know how hard it is to potentially win 3 Stanley Cups back to back to back in this age with the salary cap, with personalities, with trying to deal with the ups and downs of mental case goaltenders. Man, and you have a Steven Stamkos really elevating himself in the annals of the NHL in terms of being clutch and a leader, and you've turned over the roster a little bit and added pieces. Man, you got to get him. If that's the guy, if Steve Yzerman's working his magic, that would be the biggest buzz. That would be the biggest thing that he could do, is to bring in, obviously, the best. Because he's worked with them. He's got experience. He understands. You know, you read the tea leaves, they're close. So maybe. And after you've won 3 Stanley Cups at a place, what's there to do than to just keep doing it? And the challenge may not be as great as Cooper would want, trying to do it in Detroit, one of the premier hockey cities, elite, that would be all about hockey. If he the second he stepped foot, he would be talked about, he would be analyzed, he'd be written about. So I'm hoping that's what's best for business in regards to getting the Wings back on track. But what also is best for business is also taking and really looking at what others do well. And obviously, I know you, me, same kind of thing. You look at it and you're like, damn, the Avalanche and the Lightning who've taken you out of the postseason, the Avs, the storied rivalry. The Avs rebuilt and took their sweet-ass time to get back to the postseason, but now they're on the brink of potentially hoisting the Stanley Cup. They've done a lot of good things. And if you're looking at a rebuild, just look at what the Avalanche did. It took a long time. You know, they've had top picks back in 2010 that have now started to show themselves on the ice. That's 12 12 NHL seasons that they've had to marinate. And when, you know, I remember I hearken back to an interview that Ken Holland did, and he got lambasted. He said, a rebuild might take 10 years. And everybody laughed at him. We laughed at him and said, no, it doesn't. If you're any good, it could take less, but it might. Nowadays, with the salary cap, with the way in which players' personalities are, and there's the way in which they develop, the way in which teams are utilizing these players, a player might not hit his prime until 29, 30, and you got to tap into it. So I'm looking at that Avalanche rebuild and saying, man, it was patient. They went through their ups and downs. They built up a plethora of young players. Now, they're in a tough spot because you look at it and you look at the matchup, the media world loves them, but unfortunately they don't have the goaltending that is as reliable as you would want heading into a series as big as this. On paper, it favors the Lightning to win the cup again, but boy, I think it's going to be a great series. But if you look at a rebuild, I would take a lot away from the manner in which the Avalanche built if you want to start taking away some things in regards to just stocking players, developing them, and then adding the right pieces when the time is right. But their rebuild was long as shit.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. It feels like for the Avalanche, they've kind of been knocking on the door now for 3 or 4 seasons. It feels like the expectation has kind of grown. And it's awesome to kind of see them get here now. Like, I'm kind of over the whole Detroit Red Wing Colorado Avalanche rivalry. I'll watch the 30 for 30 when it comes out, and I'll be gripped to it. But I'm kind of over it right now because they're completely different players. And just that bad blood and that animosity has kind of mellowed and gone away. But if you look at what Tampa Bay has, you look at what Colorado has, I think the way the Wings have to develop this team, and it goes back to defense, you have to get that defensive presence. You have to get that guy. Maybe Mo Seider is that guy for the Detroit Red Wings. So you look at Colorado, they got Cal McCarr. That is their defensive stud. That is their guy. That guy can score. He can hit. He can move the puck up. He can carry the puck. That's their guy. Ryan McDonough is that guy for Tampa Bay. You've got to have that one guy who's on the defensive side who can take over a game, and then you can add pieces around him, guys who can either help support him and make him better, and guys he can help make better. And then you have to have at least 2 or 3 forwards who can do a couple of different things. Tampa Bay, I've already mentioned Kucherov. I've already mentioned Stamkos. They've got Alex Killorn. They've got Cirelli. Cirelli and Pat Maroon are 2 guys who just kind of like to do some dirty stuff, you know. Palat's another guy who can score. So Tampa Bay, like I've already went through and I've named 5 guys right off the top of the head. You look at Colorado, they've got McKinnon, who's a stud. You got Landeskog, who's really, really good. Kadri, who's probably my favorite guy because he'll take his skate off and try to cut you. Kadri's a guy who will go into the corners. He will win the battle in the corners, and he will muck it up. He's not afraid to do the dirty stuff, and you see how that pays dividends in the playoffs. He is a guy who has multiple point games in the playoffs because he's willing to stick his nose into those dirty spots, dig the puck out, get it to other guys. Now, I don't think Kadri's a guy that you need to go out and you need to spend $6, $7, $8 million on because I don't think he's that good of a player. I think what he is a guy who, when you pair him with really good pieces, guys who are a little bit better than him, he raises his level. And when it comes to crunch time, when it comes to the playoffs, he's a guy who can help elevate his game. You need at least 1 or 2 of those guys. I think Todd Bertuzzi might be that guy, a guy who's not afraid to do the dirty stuff, a guy who does have pretty good hands, a guy who can skate and who can score. Now, what you need to find is you need to find your Stamkos or your Nathan McKinnon. You need to find that guy, and you need to kind of build around them. They don't have that guy yet. You know, and like I said, unless you believe Vrana is that guy, and I don't know because we had, maybe a 25-game sampling of what he could do, and then he was injured, and then he came back off injury late in the season last year. You have to be able to have these pieces on each level, defense, offense. You got to be able to have a guy who's a little bit dirty. I think where Colorado falls short is in between the pipes. I don't think their goaltending matches up to what Tampa Bay has. I think they have the ability, though, to really pressure you and really get in your face. It'll be interesting to see if Kadri can come back for the finals because I feel like he is a really important piece for Colorado. And I think he's a guy who can really help level the playing field a little bit because right now I feel like Tampa Bay is going to be your betting favorite. Tampa Bay is probably going to be the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup. I feel like if you add Kadri, all of a sudden it becomes a much more interesting competition, a much more interesting game, and a much more interesting series between the two teams.
Who do you got winning and how many games?
I think Tampa Bay wins it. I would say 4-1. I think Colorado gets a game out of the mix. And again, I just think goaltending is going to be the difference here.
Yeah, everybody says the same thing in regards to looking at such a close series is what's it going to take to get the Colorado Avalanche over the hump. That might take a performance. You never know. They might have to use the two goalies that are on that roster to handle business to try and match up with everything that's going down. It's going to be great. It's going to start.
How do you think it plays out?
I think it plays out the same. I think it's going to be 6 games, Tampa Bay. I think the Lightning, 3-time champs, they got the best of everything. They got clutch. I thought that the series against the Rangers really showed what they could do. I was really impressed. They shut it down. They handled business, and when they needed to, you always harken back. That's what I like. That's when I'm out there at Allen Park covering the Lions, I watch defense. I mean, it's fun to watch them toss the pass, but I like the linebackers. I like the nitty-gritty. I like the in the dirt. I like Aaron Glenn yelling at these linebackers like, figure this out, because the chess match is such an interesting and intriguing thing in terms of defense. It's the gritty work. It's the stuff that you got to do behind the scenes to make things happen, and I'm a big fan of that. So in regards to the Lightning, they do that, and it's all led by one of the greatest NHL, right now at least, one of the great NHL managers in John Cooper. All right, now we're going to turn our attention, one final thing here for this week's Doc and Jock podcast on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is the Detroit Lions. Just finished a long organized team activities. It was tough in regards to rookie minicamp, and you had a mandatory week of minicamp with veterans, and then one final session on Monday there. And now we're at the point where the Lions will take, after this week, I mean, it's work. The Lions have about half the roster there of young cats still working. But now we're at the true beginning of what's called the NFL offseason. 6 weeks from now, June 14th, until the end of July, there will be no real media access, no coverage, no practices in regards to stuff going on at the team facility. So now you can let the dust settle on everything. I said when I had a chance to speak to Malcolm Rodriguez and put that all together, I said, man, I was excited to be out there every single week. All the analysis, all the stuff, I was amped. And now you get, what typically happens is the coverage slows down from all the beat writers. But I said, man, on the latest All Lions podcast, I want to go. I want to keep going. I don't want it to stop because there's so much to look into, the newness of the team. I was questioning, like, why am I excited? And most people are like, I want to be done with this. I want to keep going. I want to go. I want to analyze, what's this team going to be? Is it going to be an 8-win team? Am I going to get proven wrong? Is it going to be a team that can do more? Or is it going to be a team that bottoms out? Because it's a new team, and I think it's the newness, it's the freshness of having really 20 new players that join, the combination of young players, the involvement of having a new offensive coordinator, and then having a player that's injured, and then having a quarterback that you want to see how does he handle the shock of his first year getting traded from LA. So there's a lot of newness. So I don't want to step away. Most people do. It's crazy not to, but I'm going to go full bore. I'm not stopping. I'm going to try to go maybe 5 full years without taking an extended break. I might do it because I like to do it and it's fun to do. And really there is a lot to look at with the offense, the defense. I spent Monday exclusively looking at Aaron Glenn and Kelvin Shepard working with the linebackers. That's my position. I wanted to see them, and we get good close access to hear some of the talk in regards to the coaching and how they're looking at just that fine minutia of detail that will determine if a linebacker breaks this way or that way if they get to the running back. And it was emphasized, and I liked it. I liked what I saw in the coaching. I liked what I saw in regards to the teaching process. But I'm fascinated to see, for me at least to start, is this defense going to be any better in regards to what's going on with the Lions? There's a lot to look at in regards to the offense, who could be the camp darling. I think the camp darling, because of the attitude of this roster, that's why I went to, I'm looking at it, I'm like, who should I interview? I'm like, I should go ask for Aiden Hutchinson. And, me with my inferiority complex, I'm like, they're not going to say that. He's just going to brush me off. I'm 5'2" and he's 6'7". I'm not going to do that. So I said, who do I want? And I really wanted to talk to the Lebanese lineman. I'm like, okay, but, you have to look at business. I'll get a chance to talk to him down the road in a different capacity. I said, who do I want to talk to? Who's getting talked about? I said, you know what? Malcolm Rodriguez is almost my height. Let me go talk to him. And he was cool. He was very cool, Southern accent, very polite. And I asked, hey, I want to, talk to Malcolm Rodriguez because the linebackers coach said this guy in the future could wear the green dot. I was like, whoa. He could be the quarterback of the defense. So I talked to him. I think he has a chance to be the camp darling because I think he does one big hit and people are going to love him because, right or not, he is maybe a little undersized for what he's doing. But if he can be a thumper, if he can bring that nasty edge that maybe this team could look at, I think he'll be a player. And Chick will listen to the All Lions podcast. I got about 8 minutes of content with him, just asking about his early experiences and working with the linebackers room and stuff like that. He gave a funny answer in regard to his favorite thing. It was not football related. And you can also get a little bit of a fun moment where the boys were being boys and talking shit as I was interviewing. It was funny because I worked my way through it as I'm interviewing someone, and the boys are just talking shit, and it was funny talking shit to a rookie. But I think the camp darling is going to be Malcolm Rodriguez, or it might be someone else on offense in regards to an undrafted free agent as well, and Khalil Pimpleton, if he makes plays in preseason. And it really depends on how the reports come out. You know, it's tough when you have that much going on to pay attention to every single thing, but I think it could be Khalil Pimpleton or it could be Malcolm Rodriguez that get out there and get some attention because of what they're doing. And people do like the underdog. They like that kind of story. But I think if you pay attention to Malcolm Rodriguez and what he can do, at least the talk, the rhetoric coming out of Allen Park is this guy's ready. He understands the position, and now we got to get the potential out of him. So I was left impressed. He does seem to be knowing where he needs to be. He definitely takes instructions well. And James Houston, just a little inside, just because Josh Paschal was dealing with the injury, he was playing more with his hand in the ground, was working more with the defensive linemen, but he's also being trained in several different spots at linebacker as well. So it'll be interesting to see how camp, when it rolls around, all the interesting stuff that goes on. Is there anybody that when you've paid attention to saying, hey, Trinity Benson, Quintez Cephas, Goff, is there anybody that could end up being the camp darling that we haven't even looked at?
I think it's going to be Khalil Pimpleton. That was my guy because for a couple of reasons. It always seems like it's a wide receiver, right? It always seems like it's a wide receiver who either comes from a small school or is undrafted, and for some reason they just tear it up during minicamp. Last year it was Tom Kennedy. So it always appears to be a wide receiver, and I think Khalil Pimpleton, he's one local kid, right? Smaller school, Central Michigan. I think this is a guy who can come in, and I think if starts making plays, like you said, I think it'll probably be him. He'll be the guy that everybody's gravitating towards, and everybody will be like, oh my God, he should be the third wide receiver out there. He should take DJ Shark's job. Why isn't he getting more touches? Why isn't he playing more? For me, it'll probably be him.
Okay. Do you think he makes this roster? I think the camp battles that people are going to look to, one of the exciting ones is who's going to be wide receiver 5 and 6. And you're looking at Quintez Cephas, Tom Kennedy, Trinity Benson, and the likes of Khalil Pimpleton. So, and then you throw in Corey Sutton in the mix too. So you have a lot of opportunity to make plays. So it's going to be interesting.
That's going to be a really good competition to watch because those guys, they really should be battling it out for those final spots. And look, I think he has an opportunity. Obviously, Quintez Cephas, I feel like, has a little bit of the edge because he's now going into his 4th season. So you would think that it would be Quintez Cephas, maybe 3rd season, but I feel like Cephas should have the edge there, but it'll be interesting. I mean, it really comes down to making plays, and this is something that we talked about last year. You got to get the separation. If you can get separation, I think that helps separate you from the rest of the pack, and I think it helps give you a leg up and helps give you a little bit of an edge.
Okay, I like it. A player we had a chance to talk to was Trinity Benson, and he said something funny. I thought it was great. And it was it was maybe a little bit of disrespect, but I thought it was earned. I thought it was great. You know, a lot of times on social media, you'll see the workouts like Quintez Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds are tossing the football with Jared Goff. So naturally, you get Trinity Benson up there, and he's like, answering the questions, and they're like, hey, have you had any opportunity to kind of develop more chemistry with Jared Goff? And he's like, no, man, haven't gotten the opportunity to throw with him. And one of the great beat writers in town lobs the follow-up, just in a casual way, maybe would have been delivered differently by me, but beautifully delivered. And he said, well, what happened? Did the invite get lost in the mail? And you could instantly see his mood change. And he's like, nah, man, I wasn't invited. And it was kind of like that, Trinity Benson wasn't on Goff's radar. So you're like, man, damn, how's he going to get on the radar? Well, how does he get on the radar? He balls the fuck out in training camp, in mini camp. That's how you get on the radar. You do something. You show something. So he's not on Jared Goff's radar. And boy, was he mad. Boy, was he mad. You know what, for me though, I loved it. I was like, yeah, this is good. I don't know if it was done intentionally or, like the clowns that message us on Facebook say, it's Trinity fucking Benson. Why is he going to invite a practice squad player to go out there to California? Well, Trinity Benson's trying to make this roster. And by God, he is busting his ass out there at minicamp trying to show something to get on Jared Goff's radar. And I think he did. Now, here's the problem. It's not the first time that he's done this. Everybody said, dude, this is a camp darling. This guy will light it up in preseason, light it up in camps, but when the bright lights are on, might not be able to deliver. So I was like, oh boy, you put that in my head. Now I got to watch that and see that variable when I do the evaluation to basically balance out what I'm actually seeing. But I like to see at least that he said the truth, which is, look, your first year, they just throw a bunch of shit at you and they expect you to figure it out. He's like, I did need a little guidance, a little bit of reps, and it didn't work that way. But the Lions had a plan. They wanted to throw the book at him just to see what he could handle. And obviously, it didn't go exactly right. But the vision was, this is a developmental player. Let's just do it. Let's just throw him in the deep end, see what the fuck happens. And the first year, not so good. Let's see what happens in second year. I think if either he or Quintez Cephas can take a step forward, that would be a real solid addition. If you can get a quality receiver, in the likes of a Danny Amendola that can just be reliable, catch the football, stretch the field a little bit, spell Amon-Ra St. Brown when you need to, I think I'm going to put it out there. I think he balls. I think that right there, if my psychology senses are up and you push someone and they rise to the occasion, you could have some great things. So we'll see. Trinity Benson, though, man, I wish you were there because I might have elbowed you and said, fuck, this guy got the ultimate disrespect. And it was great. Well, what happened? The invite get lost in the mail? And he looked, go watch it, actually. You can go watch it on YouTube. All the great press conferences, all the way from the top, head coach Dan Campbell, all the way to like the 9th assistant coach are there. You can check them out. They're real good. Maybe see one of your favorite podcasters lurking in the background. But I think I'm going to put it out there. Trinity Benson balls, psychological reasons, disrespect, had a bad first year. I think that he's going to try to turn it around. What do you think?
It's funny. I didn't think you were going to go that route, but I'm going to agree with you. I think he does ball out, and some of it has to do with where he came from. He comes from Denver. Look at Denver's roster. Denver has 3 top wide receivers, 3 guys that when you're drafting your fantasy football team, you should be looking at. Yeah, some of them might come in the later rounds, but you got a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who looks like he's going to have a really good NFL career, Tim Patrick, and Cortland Sutton. Those are 3 guys who every single year tear it up in fantasy football. And look, I know we don't correlate fantasy football to actual football, but you have to remember, in Denver, they have a pretty decent eye for wide receivers. And you have to remember Trinity Benson came from Denver. I think because of that, I think he has a bit of a chance here to really ball out. And like he said, first year they just kind of throw everything at you. And whatever sticks, and they're bringing him along. And look, he's been ripping it up in minicamp, in OTAs. So I think second year, I think this guy has. I think he has a really good shot to do a lot of really good things. It's not every day that you get a guy who's like, he's a little bit older, right? Like 25. He's a little bit of an older guy, a little bit more mature. He's a 6-foot wide receiver. He's fast. This is a guy who can catch the ball. I think he just has to build a little bit of that rapport with Jared Goff. I think he has to learn the playbook and really digest and understand what his responsibilities are. And I think this is a guy who can really develop and turn into something. So I think he's going to ball out. I think you're right. I think also the disrespect that he got, he got lost in the mail. Never came. Never got the invite.
Never got the invite.
I think that fuels some fire.
That's it. It should. That's the purpose. I hope. That's crazy. But now, listen, it really does show you a little bit of the inside hierarchy of how things go. Like, it shows you. And that's the part about the draw for me is in sports is obviously the numbers are great, the geekdom's great, but the psychology, the feelings that people have, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not on the depth chart. Like, that shit plays out in real life. Like, people's feelings get hurt. They take everything so personally. They just do things in a certain kind of way. And you look at it and you're like, you're Trinity Benson. You're like, damn, I'm trying to make this roster. And that's the way it feels amongst the undrafted free agents. When you get out there, if you get a chance to get out to Allen Park, definitely take advantage. Don't miss out, because you can see the hard work of those that are drafted versus those that are not drafted. And sometimes maybe a quarterback that gets drafted in the 6th round ends up being the likes of a Tom Brady just because of the fact he was disrespected, not because of what his real talent may be, but just because of how people treated him. And hey, it's motivating for a lot of people, all the way in sports, maybe in other realms as well. The disrespect fuel can really take people to a lot of amazing places, let me tell you. And I hope it does. We're really getting into it psychologically with Trinity Benson. But, hopefully, because the Lions invested a trade in him, so they saw something in him. It's the first look at Brad Holmes saying, hey, I think I see something in a guy. Let's bring him in. And that's the kind of stuff we like to see. Can the Lions take a guy like a Trinity Benson and make him into something? Or not? Maybe Quintez Cephas sees that and battles as well, because he's also faced a little bit of that challenge and people questioning his speed, questioning what he can do, always putting him at number 3, 4 on a depth chart. So that competitiveness just comes out when your buttons push. But that was just a great moment. Just watch. Look at his face. I think it was there. I think I saw it. Now I'm on the side and I'm short, and half the time I'm thinking about 5, 6 things and doing 20 other things at the same time when I'm trying to listen and put it together. But I think I saw it. I felt the vibe that, oh shit, the disrespect card was there. And I hope for a guy like Trinity Benson, he uses it in a way that can make this offense better. Now, the last thing on the docket, and it's a very good question, because of how this team has been constructed. You have a great offensive line with 5 players who did not spend a lot of time playing together in 2021. Finally got a chance to see it at organized team activities. How much, should the Lions offense toss the football deep? Because for me, it's yin and yang. I want to see it, want to be entertained, but I'm not exactly sure Goff can execute it, especially when you have a great offensive line and a DeAndre Swift and a Jamal Williams and a Craig Reynolds, who I think could be a threesome there, a trio per se, that can do some things on the ground. So for me, I think you have to throw the football 3 to 5 times deep per game just to take the top off the defense, just to keep them honest so that you can pound the rock, work the middle with Amon-Ra, and work your intermediate game in between 5 and 12 yards. Because I think this offense, if it can be creative, running the football off of play action, handling business, doing things with Hawkinson, St. Brown, Reynolds, Jameson Williams later in the year, DJ Chark, there's a chance it could be explosive, but you just need to do it just enough, maybe even to 6. But when you do it, the risk is Goff can't connect, and these defensive backs can handle business nowadays as well, especially if the play takes a long time to develop. You need the run game to work in order to even begin the convo about tossing the football deep. How often do you think? Could the Lions surprise everybody and become the greatest show on turf in 2022?
No, I don't think that happens. I mean, you've got a quarterback who has a noodle for an arm, so until that changes,
but he did it. He did it
a little bit limited.
The film was there. He did do it a little bit with the Rams. It was there. He did toss the ball deep. Sean McVay did not restrict him, but yes, it wasn't as successful as you've seen with the likes of a Josh Allen.
I mean, all the stats are out there. His passes, basically anything over 20 yards, he struggles with. His game is predicated on everything basically over the middle, short passes over the middle, and everything off to the sides. It's that short intermediate game where Jared Goff really excels. That being said, you obviously have to open it up a little bit. You have to be able to pull guys out of the box to really get that run game going, get your tight end freed up, and really open some stuff up underneath for a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you are going to have to throw it deep, or at least take the chance to throw it deep. And you brought DJ Chark in here for a reason. So if you're going to do that, you like you said, you have to throw it deep at least 5 to 7 times. I'd probably go 10 times a game, and you're hoping that maybe Jared Goff completes 3 out of those 10. I mean, I would take 30% from Jared Goff going deep. if that can spring a big, I don't know, 25 to 40-yard gain, you know what I'm saying? Just kind of helps open everything up. You've got to be able to keep that secondary on its toes. You got to be able to pull that safety out of the box, and you've got to be able to kind of spread guys out and make them a little bit thinner to open up some gaps and to open up some holes. So DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams can get rolling. So guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown can kind of cut underneath and really slice that defense up. So a guy like TJ Hawkinson can have a better season because TJ Hawkinson really hasn't shown me anything. So you open it up deep, and it kind of helps open up everything underneath. It keeps everybody honest, and that's what you're really looking for. But yeah, no, I agree with you. You're going to have to go deep a couple of times a game. I'm willing to lean more towards the extreme and go at least 10 times a game, and I don't know how extreme that is, but I'm going to go a little bit more than you and say throw it deep at least 10 times a game and get these guys involved. You know, if you can hit a home run now and again, like I said, it really makes the defensive coordinators reevaluate what they're doing and how they're playing you, and it really helps open up a lot more. So it's just kind of keeping guys on their toes and keeping them honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the great intrigue. Ben Johnson. I know the hyperbole could be there. Is he the next offensive wizard? Can he be the likes of a Sean McVay? Can he tap into something that's special? Can he be revolutionary? Can he do something different with the play action? Or is it going to be just a slight advancement on what we saw from the Saints? So I can't wait to see it. That's what fuels you, is the newness of it. And it stinks that there's going to be a little bit of a pause in the action in terms of the access and the practices and stuff like that. But these guys are getting to work. 6-week pause. I think it's good for everybody to just ramp it down just a notch. And we'll have an opportunity to kind of really evaluate what happened over minicamp and how the training camp battles are going to commence. So that's why you got to stay with All Lions at si.com/NFL/Lions and the Detroit Sports Podcast Network as we bring you uncensored, unfiltered content that's different than anywhere else in the universe. And that's why we've enjoyed recording well over 400 podcasts, making sure, just go check. Do you see anybody putting out podcasts in Detroit with the number 400 by it? No, you're not going to see that. And it's great because we have the access to do what we want to do and break down all things in the world of Detroit sports. Man, it's going to be interesting because the hope is there right now, which is always there, hope season. Training camp will fuel that. I think a week of practice with the Colts will help the team get better. But really, bottom line, with this Detroit Lions football team, it's all about getting out there on Sundays and making plays late and not shooting yourself in the foot. How much better can this team be with the new talent that was added? That's the question, and that's what everyone's going to prognosticate about. But in the meantime, enjoy the likes of those that want to talk about the Lions and the playoffs, courtesy of Sports Illustrated or NFL.com and stuff like that. Enjoy that. It's fun. I know you guys are smart. You're taking it with a grain of salt. I respect that. Your comments have been salty as ever, and keep sending them at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you follow Adam as well on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. He'll keep it real with you. No bullshit coming his way. Never. In the history of never everdom, no bullshit will come his way. He'll tell you what he sees when he sees it. And that's the best part about Adam and his coverage of Detroit sports. Cuz, let's hit this up next week. It's going to be a fun time as we hit the summer. Shit's going to be hot this week. You going to stay warm or stay cool? Or how the fuck are you going to deal with 95-degree heat the rest of this week?
Just trying to stay cool, man. Just turn that air on and hope the AC doesn't break.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key. That's our good PSA for today. Everybody, check those damn coils. Make sure your AC works because it's about to get hot up in here. Deuces, everybody. Thank you for downloading the latest edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.